You're doing everything right. You're eating clean, you've cut the junk, maybe you're even dragging yourself to the gym 4 days a week. You step on the scale, heart pounding, expecting a victory, and the number stares back at you, cold and unchanging. Or worse, it went down, but when you look in the mirror, the belly is still there. You just look softer, tired, older. It makes you want to scream. It makes you want to quit. But here is the twisted irony that nobody tells you. The harder you try to force the weight off with willpower, the more your body fights to keep it. You aren't failing because you're lazy. You're failing because you are trying to solve a biological problem with a mathematical equation that simply does not work. There is a hidden mechanism inside your body, a master switch, that decides whether you burn fat or hoard it. And right now, for most men over 40, that switch is stuck in the hoard position. You've been told that fat loss is just calories in, calories out. But if you stick with me, I'm going to show you why that advice is not just wrong, it's actually dangerous for your metabolism. By the end of this video, I'm going to hand you the manual to your own biology, revealing the exact chemical process that turns solid belly fat into thin air. But first, we have to look at why your current strategy is likely destroying your muscle instead of your waistline. Let's look at the math, because this is where the grind mindset falls apart. You think that hour of torture on the treadmill is melting away your gut? Think again. The amount of energy you burn through exercise is shockingly small. Let's say you eat a single bagel. That's roughly 300 calories. To burn off that one single bagel, you would have to jump rope without stopping at high intensity for nearly 30 minutes. Just for the bagel. That doesn't include the coffee, the lunch, or the dinner. You physically cannot outwork a modern diet. The math is rigged against you. And that sweat dripping off your forehead? That's not fat crying. That is water. It is your body trying to cool itself down. You can lose 2 pounds of water weight in a heavy workout, feel accomplished, and then gain it all back the second you drink a bottle of water and eat a salty meal. It's a phantom victory. But here is the real danger, the trap that keeps millions of men stuck in a cycle of misery. When you rely on grinding and crash dieting, when you starve yourself and over-exercise, you might lose weight on the scale. But you probably aren't losing fat. When an older body senses starvation and high stress, it panics. It holds on to fat because fat is survival fuel. Instead, it starts breaking down expensive tissue that burns too much energy. That tissue is your muscle. So you drop 10 pounds, but 5 of it was the muscle tone you desperately wanted to keep. You end up lighter, yes, but your metabolism crashes, your testosterone takes a hit, and your body becomes skinny fat. It's a biological tragedy. So if running yourself into the ground isn't the answer, and starving yourself destroys your engine, how do we actually target the fat cells directly? It turns out the secret isn't in your legs, it's in your lungs. To understand why, we have to look at the master switch I mentioned earlier. Most men I talk to think they have bad genetics. They look at their fathers and think the belly is inevitable. But we're going to climb the ladder of truth here. It's not genetics, it's hormones. Specifically, it's one hormone that acts as the gatekeeper to your fat stores, insulin. I want you to think of your body not as a temple, but as a factory. And insulin is the factory foreman. He's a strict old-school guy. When you eat, especially carbohydrates, bread, pasta, rice, sugar, your blood sugar rises. This signals the foreman to clock in. And when insulin is on the floor, his number one rule is lock the warehouse. He locks the fat cells tight. He forbids any energy from being taken out of storage. This is the critical piece of the puzzle that most doctors gloss over. As long as insulin is high, it is biologically impossible for you to burn body fat. You could be sprinting up a mountain, but if you just ate a high-carb energy bar, the foreman is standing there with the keys, refusing to let the fat out. You'll just burn the sugar in your blood and then crash. This is why diet controls 85% of your fat loss results. It's not because calories don't matter, they do, but because the timing of your food determines whether the warehouse manager is on duty or on vacation. In the modern world, we graze. We eat breakfast, a mid-morning snack, lunch, a snack, dinner. We are constantly spiking insulin. The foreman never goes home. The doors to your fat stores are locked from the moment you wake up until the moment you sleep. You are carrying around 100,000 calories of energy on your waistline, but your body can't access a single ounce of it. You are starving in the midst of plenty. So the first step in our roadmap isn't to run more, it's to send the foreman home. This is the power of intermittent fasting. It is not a fad, it is a biological reset. When you stop eating for 16 or 18 hours, insulin drops to baseline. The warehouse doors unlock. Your body looks around, realizes there's no sugar coming in, and finally says, "All right, switch the fuel lines." It stops burning sugar and starts burning stored body fat. Authority signals from top clinical researchers confirm this repeatedly. Studies show that in the absence of insulin, the body has no choice but to mobilize triglycerides, that's fat, for survival. This is the metabolic switch you've been looking for. It's not about willpower, it's about signaling. But here is where the story gets really interesting. Unlocking the fat cell is only step one. Once those doors are unlocked and the fat is released into the bloodstream, where does it go? It doesn't vanish into thin air. Or does it? I want to ask you a serious question, and the answer is going to change how you view every breath you take. When you lose 10 pounds of fat, where is that mass? Where does it go? Does it turn into heat? Does it turn into energy? Do you excrete it in the bathroom? Most people, even some experts, get this wrong. They think fat is converted into pure energy. But that violates the laws of physics. Matter cannot be destroyed, it can only change form. So, here is the pattern interrupt that changes everything. You exhale your fat. Yes, you heard me correctly, you breathe it out. Fat is composed of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. When your body mobilizes fat from your belly, it undergoes a process called oxidation. It breaks the chemical bonds. The waste product of that reaction is 84% carbon dioxide and 16% water. You literally breathe away your spare tire. Every time you exhale, you are removing carbon atoms that used to be sitting on your waistline. This brings us to a profound realization about efficiency. Fat loss is an oxidation process. You need oxygen to burn the carbon. Think of your metabolism like a combustion engine in a vintage car. If you want the fuel to burn clean and hot, you need the right air-to-fuel ratio. If you choke off the air intake, the engine sputters. This implies that the way you breathe matters. And this is where the no pain, no gain mentality backfires on us. We think that to lose weight, we need to kill ourselves in the workout. We need to be gasping for air, red-faced, terrified, and stressed. But when you are in that state of high stress, you are gasping, not breathing effectively. Your body releases cortisol, a stress hormone, which fights against fat loss. Sometimes the harder you try, the more you suffocate the process. This is why I advocate for a method called NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis. It's a fancy term for moving your body gently all day long, walking, fidgeting, standing, taking the stairs. When you go for a long, brisk walk, you aren't gasping for air. You can breathe deeply. You are supplying a steady stream of oxygen to the fire, and because the intensity is low, your body prefers to burn fat as its primary fuel source. You keep the oxidation fire burning all day long without spiking your hunger or your stress levels. It's not sexy, like a high-intensity interval montage in a movie, but it is biologically superior for long-term fat oxidation. So be honest with me in the comments right now. Did you think fat turned into sweat or energy? Type the word exhale down below if this just blew your mind. Now you have the mechanism. Unlock the fat with fasting. Burn the fat with breathing. But there is a massive trap waiting for you, a visual lie that makes most men quit right before the miracle happens. You might be thinking, okay, I'm fasting, I'm walking. So why is my stomach still sticking out? Why does my belt feel tight some days and loose on others? The answer might not be fat at all. We have to distinguish between fat and inflammation. You step on the scale on Monday and you're down 2 pounds. You step on it Tuesday and you're up 3. Did you gain 3 pounds of fat in 24 hours? No, that is physiologically impossible. To gain 3 pounds of fat, you'd have to eat roughly 10,500 calories above your maintenance level. You didn't do that. What you are seeing is system inflammation. As we age, our gut lining becomes more sensitive. If you eat salty foods, refined carbs, or drink alcohol, your body holds on to water to dilute the toxins. If you eat foods that inflame your gut, you produce gas. That hard, distended belly, the beer gut, is often visceral inflammation and internal pressure, not just subcutaneous fat. Here is a scarcity insight. Most men walk around with 5 to 10 pounds of water weight they don't need. This is actually good news. It means you can get a quick win. By simply cutting out the sugars, the grains, and the alcohol for just 48 hours, you can flush that water out. You might drop an inch off your waist in 2 days. You didn't burn the fat yet, but you reduced the system pressure. And that visual win is important. It keeps you in the game. But we have to be careful not to confuse this with the deep work. And speaking of confusion, let's kill the biggest myth in fitness right now: spot reduction. I see men in their 50s doing hundreds of side bends and crunches, trying to whittle their waist. Listen to me. You cannot crunch away a gut. It does not work that way. When you do sit-ups, you are building the muscle underneath the fat. If you don't lose the fat on top, you'll actually just push your stomach out further. Fat loss is systemic. It happens all over your body like draining a lake. You can't take a bucket and only remove water from the deep end. The water level goes down everywhere. And here is the hard truth for men. The belly is the deep end. Belly fat, specifically visceral fat, has a high density of what are called alpha-2 receptors. These receptors make the fat stubborn. They lock it down. It is often the last place the fat leaves. You will lose fat in your face, your arms, and your legs first. Do not let this discourage you. When your face starts looking leaner, that is the sign the system is working. The belly will follow, but you have to stay the course. Now we've covered diet, breathing, and movement. But there is one final guardrail, a final peak tip that separates the men who succeed from the men who fail. You can fast, walk, and breathe, but if you ignore this, you will fail. Sleep. I know you're busy. You're productive. Maybe you think you only need 5 hours. You are wrong. Sleep is when your body balances its hormones. Specifically, it's when you scrub the brain of toxins and regulate cortisol. If you are sleep deprived, your testosterone drops, which destroys your ability to burn fat, and your cortisol spikes, which packs fat right onto your organs. Sleep is not laziness, it is metabolic maintenance. So, we aren't just trying to fit into smaller jeans here. We are doing something much more profound. We are rewiring the body's entire operating system. We are moving away from the identity of the desperate dieter who starves and suffers, and stepping into the identity of the optimizer who understands the manual. Let's bring this all together into the full roadmap we promised at the start. First, control insulin. Use intermittent fasting. Skip breakfast or push it back. Stop the snacking. Let the factory foreman go home. Second, move efficiently. Don't kill your joints with high-impact cardio. Walk, ruck. Keep the oxidation engine running with NEAT. Third, build the engine. We haven't touched on this enough, but lift heavy things. Muscle is expensive tissue. It burns calories just sitting there. It protects your testosterone and your longevity. And finally, respect the recovery. Sleep is when the fat loss actually happens. You don't need to starve. You don't need to suffer. You just need to understand the manual for the machine you are living in. Your body wants to be lean. It is designed to be efficient. You just have to stop standing in its way. I know many of you have been experimenting with fasting for years, and some of you are just starting. I want to hear from the veterans in the comments. How has fasting changed your energy levels, your focus? Share your protocol so the new guys can see that this is real. If you found value in this breakdown, hit that like button. It tells the algorithm that men want science, not fluff. Subscribe if you want to keep optimizing your health. And if you want to stay connected and stay healthy, click on the video on screen. I'll see you there.